Welcome, 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 my lovely brothers and sisters. Welcome back to a new live book reading. We continue with part two of the Kingdom of Death, because that is the world we are living in. We are living in actuality in the abyss, so to speak, if you want to call it like that. We are not living in the original world that we should have to be in. We are living in a construct and in a extreme bad copy of the real universe that we should be part of. But things have happened to us, a human soul group, and in such a way we live in a construct that many are calling matrix or simulation. It is an archontic construct that we are living in. This world is being ruled and reigned by archons, by many also known as demons, but these people call them as such because they lack in-depth understanding and knowledge of the construct that they are living in. So I continue with the second part, and I said yesterday morning that I would start with the attributes of light. So let us dive into that and see what that means. All right, the attributes of light. Spirit is equivalent to light, and light carries information. Therefore, we profoundly connect with spirit when we get information from somewhere within and do not know its origins. So, for example, you sit and ponder something you have read and struggle to figure out intellectually. Suddenly, you get epiphanies. Your intuition and imagination are triggered, and you feel as if you get information from somewhere outside yourself, flowing through you as a stream of consciousness. You may get accelerated and full of energy, and what flows through you seems to lead you in the right direction. You sense that the information that rushes through is more real and correct than what you read in books, watch on the internet, or receive from the outside world. So you take this information and you start analyzing it. You use your 3D intellect, the left brain, to interpret what comes through the right brain, because the information does not come in words, it comes in conceptual packages. However, using our limited physical intellect always, to some degree, distorts the correct information coming from the stream of consciousness. So it comes down to the person's ability to interpret the information as accurately as possible using their inherited intelligence. However, it is rarely 100% perfect because of our physical limitations. This is what philosophy in actuality is, and why it is so important. Often, when two or more people on a similar wavelength speculate and philosophize, a connection with spirit occurs, which happened to famous philosophers across time. As we know, many of them proved to be right on many points, which became clear later. In Old Greek, and in Old Greece, philosophers were highly regarded, but these days they are often ridiculed and attacked. Um, yeah. The spiritual phenomenon is what most artists tell you happens to them when asked about how they could create such a piece of art. They either say they pick it up from the ether, it is a stream of consciousness, or they look at their own finished art, scratching their heads thinking, did I create this? Where did that come from? So if this phenomenon happens, you are in spirit, but even daily when using your imagination, you are connected. Those not born with spirit completely and utterly lack imagination and creative thoughts. And here it comes, archons lack spirit, so they do not have imagination and they don't have any creative thoughts. So this is why they need us to create things for them. So we are the ones whom are creating the entire archontic construct here on earth, because they are abusing us humans to do the job for them. So all these green agendas, so-called green agendas, which are in actuality archontic agendas of total destruction, are now being created and brought to life by humans who lack in-depth information with whom and for whom they are working, for and with, because they lack information about the world that they are living in. They lack the information that they, in actuality, are doing the dirty job for the archons in this system. So this earth is completely being terraformed in the ideas of archons and how archons see fit that this world needs to be. So we need to realize this, and we should in actuality wake up to this and stop participating in this and stop giving away our creative ability and ability to imagine things and misuse this for someone else's agendas that do not have any best interest in their mind with us. This doesn't mean that people who rarely use their imagination are not spirited. It only means they are most likely just disconnected because of the density here and from the manipulation they are subjected to. So a person who can even fleetingly connect to imagination and inner creativity is spirited. Spirit is light and light is spirit. They are one and the same. Darkness is the absence of light and the definition of the Kenoma. So Orion and the Pleroma are lit, but not for those who are not spirited or are trapped in the Kenoma construct. So the physical universe, and this is well documented in the Secret Book of John. And also Barbara Marciniak's channeling the Pleiadians wrote an entire book on the subject. When we were Namlu'us in Tiamat, we spread light in the Kenoma via our eighth heaven luminary, which is Sirius A, but also through us, the human soul group, embodying the experiment in line with our destiny. This also means we added information to this construct through our light, and we are still doing this. We could potentially have succeeded in withdrawing the remaining spirit from the Kenoma had the Khan Kings not hijacked us in the third construct. However, the entire experiment seemed a desperate attempt to begin with. So the chance of success was faint from a retroactive perspective. So when the Khan Kings trapped us in this construct, they closed, so to speak, the door. So outside forces could not enter our planet, and this is being constructed through the frequency fence. We are the ones that keep the frequency fence alive through our state of emotional beingness. So this is why so many in history have pointed their fellow brothers, sisters, to master their emotional life. Because the more neutral you can become, the better the more weakened the frequency fence becomes. And I got from Spirit also the information a few days ago. This is that all the bombardment that they are doing through psyops and the traumatization through triggering things in us humans is also a way to make sure that we keep the frequency fence still up. And as soon as we start to see through all this, we can let go of all these aggressive emotions in us, emotions of helplessness, emotions of thinking that we are a victim and whatever. As soon as we master our emotional life, the more we help to weaken the frequency fence. And this has a benefit for and to us all. So the entire human soul group benefits from this, because the more weakened the frequency fence will become, the more glimpses we get from the rest of the universe that we are part of. And the same for the grid. The more people get to see through the things for what they really are, that weakens the grid, which creates holes. And so this grid is also in us, and because of this, it helps those who die to find a hole in the grid so that they can go back to the Orion universe instead of the false light tunnel. So many sources tell us they tilted the planet, so it is extremely difficult to find us. It exists out of phase with everything else in the Kenoma. I think this is correct, but I also believe there could be an additional aspect to it. The Khan kings, particularly Enki and Marduk, tampered with our DNA. They added their DNA in substantial quantities, and the Nag Hammadi tell us there were many archons copulating with the early Homo sapiens females and thus added their own DNA to that of Ninurta and Isis. One could speculate they changed the DNA code, and eventually, as we procreated left and right, the Khan kings got a key, so to say, that locked us into this construct via their combined DNA. This means that we also are carriers of DNA that is not even ours. This could also explain the immense cruelty that humans are able to do to one another. This cruelty is not ours, but comes from the DNA that has been given to us, which is the DNA of the Khan kings and thus the DNA of archons. And archons are aggressive beings. So now we get a more in-depth explanation of why we see so many cruelty done against one another, and how humans are able to sink so low and to sink in such levels of cruelty. Because if we look at the entire history and go through history, and we see the levels of cruelty that humans were able to do to one another, then we now have to ask, where is all this cruelty coming from? Well, we get an explanation here It is because in certain ways, things in the archontic DNA get triggered, and because of this triggering, we come more into alignment with that type of DNA. And so then we do what we do. And later on, when we are stepping aside of it and see what we have done, then we are having like, wait a minute, that is not me doing that. No, because in that moment, you were operating from the archontic DNA level and not from your human DNA. So through their combined DNA, although the prominent DNA was that of Enki and Marduk. Well, if you know that Enki is a narcissist and Marduk is a full-blown psychopath, if you now know that this world has sucked more and more into the mindset of Marduk, then you also now can see and understand why we see so many psychopathy in this world and why it is of great, great importance to have yourselves self-educated in all levels of narcissism, from the mild, so to say, to the malignant version, which is Machiavellism. A grid system based on the energy emitted by the soul group surrounds all constructs, also in Orion. But the Khan kings, using technology, locked us in here through the grid system by encapsulating it. My corresponding hypothesis is that they use their unique DNA key to keep others out and us in. So the grid became impenetrable unless you have the key to unlock it. We know the grid comprises the accumulated energy of all humans, and if humans have substantial, and here it comes, archontic DNA, comma, that mix creates a DNA pattern that may hold a key that is withheld from everyone who is not supposed to have access to it. I have no proof of this, yet something to ponder. Also, the Pleiadians talk about Enki having a back door into our DNA, so to say. The key to the DNA is thus most likely written in the tables of destiny. So now we get to Louche. Louche is a concept coined by Robert Monroe, who founded the Monroe Institute, specializing in out-of-body experiences, and he discovered there were those in the astral who fed from our fear, allowing them to extract light from our spirit. Thus they could sustain their own existence and get energized, since they have no light of their own. In the Matrix, this is exactly how the Khan Kings survive. So now we know that we need to stop participating in all the drama which is deliberately created, so that we constantly are staying in this reactive modus, in this animalistic modus of reaction. If an animal is in fear, it is reacting. A human needs to say, I'm going to do a step aside and see what is really going on here, and if this is truly mine, yes or no. An animal doesn't do so. So all the traumatization done all over the world is deliberately done to keep us in this fear modus, in this reactive emotion mode. so that we in togetherness are feeding the archons and those in the astral realm. So as soon as we stop participating in this, then the astral realm gets weakened, the archons gets weakened, and they die off, thankfully. In the Matrix, this is exactly how the Khan Kings survive. This corresponds to what the Pleiadians state, that the, between quotation marks, Anunnaki are cyborgs, and they are dying, but they draw light from us. So we are literally indeed what many people already have confirmed from generation unto generation. We humans are a living battery, and we are being treated as such. There is no compassion for us, there is no love for us. There's only one thing, and that is the lustful eye toward us because of our spirit and because of the fact that they feed us and they see us as food. So, but they draw light from us, the, between quotation marks, family of light, which is what the Pleiadians call us. So the energy depth, what is this meaning? I mentioned in my previous work that we and the Khan Kings have a so-called depth to pay because of insufficient energy usage. The Khan Kings, the archons, are constantly stealing energy from the upper realms through us, and this depletes Pistis Sophia and weakens her, preventing her from returning to the luminary power where she belongs. And now she remains on the floor level of the Pleroma, the ninth heaven. Humans were supposed to help her regain her lost energy, which keeps the Kenoma alive. But we use the energy we have to feed our oppressors in many ways. Like cosmic vampires, the archons steal our energies, and they do this 24/7 per day. And we are at a point where we gladly give it to them and help prepare for our own downfall. So this is what humanity needs to realize. We as humans are constantly bringing ourselves closer to total extinction. And this utter extinction is now being realized through artificial intelligence and the metaverse, and thus the singularity and the cloud. The Khan Kings and their human allied have become humanity's so-called saviors, which they of course are not. They're not our saviors. The only ones who can save us is we ourselves. Therefore, we recycle our spirit energy within the matrix system, and very little returns to the pleroma. This has worked fairly well for the archons for over 10,000 of years. Well, 10,000 of years too long, I think. But since we recycle our energy within the system, our spirit energy is also running out. And this explains also why we see more and more narcissistic, psychopathic people around us, because these are the people, these are the humans in which we can see whom are tremendously depleted from their soul, from their spirit energy. So we see this. And the more a person gets depleted from their spirit energy, the more we see this person becoming a full-blown narcissist or psychopath. Because the human origin is in the pleroma, and we are the extensions of this pleroma, and so also of Pistis Sophia and the first human, Geradamas. We have drawn our energy from them to perpetuate our mission. This was expected and allowed, but now it is run out of hand and the pleroma has been losing its innate power. To the same degree, we inhale it because we give nothing back to our higher selves, or the three-unit composite, which is the perfect human, which is Geradamas. Therefore, the Pleroma considered it necessary to strangle the supply from the divine realm to avoid further depletion. I have often mentioned the central sun in my previous work, and that term can be looked at in layers as everything else, since the Kenoma is considered a dead part of the Milky Way galaxy. The galactic center is one such central sun. Another is Piscis in the ninth heaven, and a third is the Geradamas in the first heaven. Again, we have the concept of hubs. As the reader notices, Pistis' mistake in creating the Kenoma and blowing spirit into Yaldabaoth has had dire consequences, and everybody is still struggling with this consequence. To find a workable solution to this. Now, in this construct, we only have the light we currently possess unless we reconnect with spirit because of inner work, letting the stream of consciousness come through. Since spirit is light, those on an inner journey will connect to this light, which will give them information that will benefit them and those around them, because it is in line with our destiny. When this happens, we are again connected to the pleroma and are starting to pay off our debt, as it were. We bring light/information into this construct and spread it all about, so others can gain too. But this is more or less the only light that comes through from the pleroma these days. And it is not enough. Eventually, this system will be depleted of energy, and we see this. We see this depletion going on because nature is dying off. Animals do not live that long anymore. Even pets are dying faster. Humans are getting more and more a shorter lifespan because of the depletion of their spirit. And so we are in the next level of death, which will weaken it and the archons as well, because the more we get depleted, the more depleted the archons also become. So they die off, but we at the same time also die. Therefore, they are now desperate to build their singularity. So now you get the understanding of the reason behind the hurry of the digital currency. Now you understand, hopefully, why they are pushing us into the blockchain, which is already a questionable thing because block-chain. Yeah, so they are chaining us again. So now I hope that you understand why they are in such a hurry to have us using artificial intelligence. Now I hope that you understand that all this is nothing more than an archontic attempt to have as much as possible humans lured into the death trap called singularity, metaverse, cloud. Because it is not what you think it is. Metaverse is not fun. Singularity is not fun. They present it as such. That is the carrot they are luring you into. This is the candy that they are using. They made the things in such a way that we humans think that it will be a nice world and blah blah blah. No, it's your death trap. It is your final death trap. Singularity is your final death trap. Metaverse is your final death trap. The cloud is your final death trap. So wake the heck up, I would say. Blood, better known as DNA, and archontic hierarchy. In the West Penry papers, I wrote that Enki was the firstborn and Prince Enlil was the secondborn. This is correct, although back then I didn't realize that both of them are head archons with capital A. Enki is Atot / Uriel, and Enlil is in actuality also known as Ninurta, also known as Sabaoth, also known as Michael, better known as Archangel Michael. From an archontic perspective, Enki is truly Yaldabaoth's firstborn, first emanated, but Sabaoth is the fifthborn. Still, he is the secondborn if we only compare Enki with Enlil and exclude the rest of the archons with capital A. The Secret Book of John confirms the West Penry papers neatly. When the text conveys what I learned almost 15 years ago. The following is the hierarchy of the archontic powers, corresponding to and copying the aeonic luminary powers. So on top we see Michael, archontic angel Michael. Then we have archontic angel Uriel. Then we have Asmenidas. Then we have Safasatul or Safasatoel. And then we have Armuriam. Then we have Richram. And then we have Amiorps. What are names? Wow. As we can see in the hierarchy, this Michael between brackets Sabaoth / Ninurta has changed places with Uriel between brackets Atoth / Enki. So in history we know a person being by a name Thoth. So now you know that his real name is in actuality Atoth and is the Enki. According to New Order within the archontic rank, after Pistis Sophia took Sabaoth under her wings and made him the authority, and I want to say to you, the word authority refers directly to the 12 head archons. Do not use that word in actuality. Just use the word writer, not authority or author or whatever. So in the languages, in all languages in this world, we find this word authority. Yeah? Why is it that they are saying, yeah, humans need to obey the authorities? Or the authorities have decided to do this or that. Well, that is all referring to the archons. Yeah, so hidden in plain sight, so to say. So in actuality, through language, we also are being taught whom are the ones that are pulling the strings here in this construct, in this so-called world. And so she made him the authority over the authorities, Michael being the second in command after Yaldabaoth. And Yaldabaoth is King Enlil. If we muse on this, comparing it to the West Penry papers, we understand why Enki was jealous of Ninurta, who became the chief authority of the emanated archons, which is written with capital A, albeit not over Kan and Lil, which is Yaldabaoth, who still was the king of kings, Kanus Kanur, in Syrian language, of the archons with a capital A, and also archons with a smaller a. Enki was the chief authority, second to Yaldabaoth, before Sabaoth repented. Thus, the rivalry between the two archons has continued up to this day. To add salt to injury, from Enki's perspective, Sabaoth was granted an entire heaven just for himself. Above the seven heavens, the authorities claimed as theirs. And the authorities, again, the archons claimed as theirs, and archons with capital A. The 12 main archons, whom also are the representation of the 12 zodiac signs. Also, in the same translation of the secret book of John, the long version, it says that Sabaoth, as the fifth born archon with capital A, created our blood and thus DNA. So the fifth kingdom created a soul of blood. Unfortunately, the Nag Hammadi do not clearly distinguish between the different constructs, Tiamat, the second Atlantis, and the Matrix. Therefore, and correctly stated, Sabaoth contributed with our blood, DNA, but in the same breath, they list a long line of archons with small a who created Adam's different body parts, such as the kidneys, spleens, heart, brain, and all the rest of it, also listed in the secret book of John. Although this is true as my contact in Orion puts it. They added something to you that was not supposed to be there. Sabaoth's blood was added already in the first construct, Tiamat, but the rest of the archons had nothing to do with it until the third construct, the Matrix. It is interesting to note that in the Pleroma, Theradamas was also elevated to become the first under Barbello, the mother of all powers and aeons in the Pleroma. So let's go to narcissists and NPCs put into perspective. Since I started learning about narcissism in 2016, I have always wondered what made these people tick. How can they develop the exact same character regardless of which part of the world they are from? There is basically no variation. Once we have learned how they operate, they are all the same and greatly predictable. And there are more and more people seeing that narcissists are being that narcissists are actually functioning according to one and the same script. And so more and more people start to realize and come to the realization that narcissism is absolutely not a personality disorder, but a script that is being played out. Psychology, which is a pseudoscience, according to psychology professor Sam Vaknin, tells us narcissism is a diagnosable, between quotation marks, disease, and that people in general are on a spectrum from 1 to 10 of being narcissistic. Although this is correct, it is not the entire truth, as we shall see. First, why is psychology a pseudoscience? Well, psychology cannot prove their hypotheses and theories about the human mind, only observe and make decisions. It also excludes the human soul and spirit because it cannot prove that they exist. Therefore, it is considered a pseudoscience. It only concentrates on the brain and the nervous system. Narcissism, according to Wagner and the rest of the psychology field that comes with it, is based on severe childhood trauma. Although childhood trauma can create extremely emotionally damaged people, and evidently also, between quotation marks, narcissists on a spectrum. Those on the spectrum are still not narcissists per definition, according to psychology. Narcissism is a diagnosable disease, so either a person is a narcissist or not. We could argue the same thing about psychopathy, known also as Machiavellianism. So Professor Wagner is himself diagnosed with malignant narcissism and psychopathy, so you can say he is a Machiavellist. And he has told us that a narcissist is artificial intelligence. We are still talking about full-fledged narcissists. Those on the spectrum are most likely targets of narcissists and have taken on some of their traits, yet they are distinguishable from the real deal. We have often discussed how everything is inverted here in the Kenoma. And there is no difference with narcissists. They are our opposites and an inversion. Hence, they are so difficult to spot when we haven't researched the subject from both a physical and spiritual perspective. It is a fact that if you know one of them, you know them all. They are truly like robots, mimicking our human trait, and regardless of where they live in the world, they are all like so-called twins. And you also can say they are connected to a hive mind, because wherever they are, the script that is being played out in narcissistic relationships is all over the world exactly the same. This is what a hive mind construct is. One is being programmed to do one thing and the rest is doing the same. This is exactly what they want to achieve with us by having us in the cloud. The cloud is then the artificial mind through which they want to program us to become more obedient slaves to these archons. And that is why we see now a society where free thinking and creativity and everything that expresses humanness is being killed off. So they, because of this, because of the fact that these narcissists are operating from one and the same script, they eventually become very predictable, especially if you are studying narcissism. And the more you do so, the deeper you start to understand, the better you start to see them around you. Wagner also tells us they lack all positive emotions and only possess the negative ones. Still, they can mimic human positive emotions, but it is not authentic, only something they have learned by studying us and trained themselves to copy. This is exactly what artificial intelligence is doing. They are abusing the data we give to them on 24/7 basis through social media, through any form um, of interaction. So if you are communicating with Chat GPT, you are getting an answer that was already being created by a fellow human brother, sister. So this whole artificial intelligence is nothing more than doing, copying us humans. So all these chatbots and chat services working on artificial intelligences, they are not smart at all. They are being run by our own data that we have given to them. So stop using all this bullshit artificial chat stupidiousness services. They cannot help you, they shall never help you, because you need to connect yourselves with spirit inside you. Their beingness is 100% physical, as if they completely lacked true spirit, which I believe they do, and they do not understand spirit. They can act knowledgeable and intelligent, but I know of 3 different narcissists who say they have drawers in their minds where they store information. They usually have an impeccable memory, seldom forget, and have access to this memory bank whenever they need it to manipulate their environment. They are all evil because they destroy the personality and the soul and mind of their victims and leave scars that often cannot be completely healed, only overridden. Narcissists also lack the ability to repent and never earnestly apologize, and in therapy they do not make any genuine progress. From a Gnostic text, we can read the following: good cannot come from evil. I would say that is a fact. It is a raw and direct statement that applies to all truly evil people, and even an entire evil construct such as the Matrix and the Kenoma. So what do narcissists and psychopaths remind us of? Following the criteria we have discussed above, they resemble the archons. They resemble the archons with capital A. So in them we can see one of the main head archons. Therefore, I want to leave this section with these bold statements. From all I have noticed, narcissists and Machiavellians, psychopaths, often comorbid, intertwined, are either archons with a small a or artificial intelligence, shortly known as AI, and most likely they are both of the two. They are here to traumatize us humans, the 3-unit composite, which means soul, mind, spirit, on purpose, and hijack our emotions and our spirit to the system. So the system, I mean, can accumulate lush, which is a soul, spirit energy, and we are kept in check. I want the reader to very seriously consider reading up on narcissism. I have said this many times and I will say it again. We must all be well educated on this subject to avoid these so-called human-looking people, whom are not human at all. When you encounter one of them, you already have, and you will again. But the more you understand narcissism, the sooner you will see through the things, because they all operate from the same script. Immediately do all you can to leave them and never look back. Never. And whatever you do, never feel sorry for them, for they are pure evil and they will destroy you completely. They deserve no sympathy and need to be behind bars to protect the rest of the population. I would go so far as to say that when you encounter someone, narcissist or not, who is derogatory or the least abusive, learn to call them out and see how they react. If they take heed and become better, give them a chance, but only once. If it continues, walk immediately away. No one deserves abuse of any kind. Some might say that is impossible. Everybody is abusive to some degree. No, they are not. And no, no one has to be. Although there are very few people who override the reactive mind they possess because of past trauma. However, even when a person has been traumatized, there is no reason to abuse someone else and continue the vicious cycle by traumatizing others. It is unacceptable and should not be tolerated. Never. To abuse somebody is a choice. Don't justify it or explain it away. If you know you may abuse people occasionally, now is a good time to stop doing this because you know you can. My contact in Orion said something to me once when we talked about narcissism and abusive people, and I will paraphrase: why don't decent people just stop interacting with those who are not? And then he knew, of course, that this couldn't be accomplished with the snap of a finger, but it could be taken as food for thought. The controversial ISIS, and then that is the last part for today. And the next time, that is part 3, I will start with our mission according to the Gnostic texts. So the controversial Isis. Isis has for long been on people's lips and mind. Many people try to figure her out. Is she good or is she bad? Something in between, maybe? Why did she do the things that she did? And why did she do that? With the information in this book in mind, let's first discuss and summarize who Isis really is. Isis exists in at least 4 aspects of herself that I know of. Her most elevated self is a direct spirit splinter of Pistis Sophia and resides in Orion as Zoe Sophia. Under that identity, she can operate in Orion and the Kenoma, but not so well in Gaia and Earth because of the lower density. When she visited Earth in the past, she became Nin.her.Sach and Nin.ma in the second construct, and also went under some other Orion titles. This was when she created Gaia with Sabaoth, who became Prince Ninurta. When he entered the planet, Nin dot her dot, and it's her in actuality, dot Sach, when she went to Egypt together with Ninurta, became known as Isis, then descending from Orion after Yaldabaoth created the first Adam. She split herself yet another time to access a lower density and became Eve, the bringer of life. In the Matrix, we still know her as Isis, however, a title she has kept since ancient Egypt. Sometimes she has existed in different emanations simultaneously. Other titles, which are just alternatives to those mentioned about, and for those who are interested, are Inanna in Mesopotamia, Diana, and Aphrodite. She is also the Orion Queen, the Queen of the Stars, and the Mother Goddess, not to be confused with the Monad slash Mother Goddess. She is also Gaia, so those who go through the grid and want to talk to the highest possible aspect of Sophia will talk to Zoe. As the reader might have realized, a being can be in different places and dimensions simultaneously. Zoe is Zoe, Sophia in Orion, but can split her consciousness and also be Isis on Earth at the same time. Zoe has pistis and thus wisdom, but because of the way matter works, consciousness decreases to various degrees when someone descends through the dimensions and densities as the Kenoma becomes more solid. As far as we are concerned, Isis is the mother goddess. It was she, as Zoe, who educated and enlightened Sabaoth and keeps spirit alive and thriving in Orion through her connection with Pistis spirit. It was Zoe who created Tiamat together with Sabaoth and their helpers, the Falcons, and it was she who blew spirit into the human physical bodies in all three constructs. She also blew spirit into Gaia so things could bloom, and she, between quotation marks, embodied a part of a spirit in our planet, since the human soul group was added to the experiment. It has been us who kept the beauty on this planet alive with our combined spirit. When things here turn less beautiful, it is because we let the calm kings take over and destroy the beauty. And this is exactly the process that we are in. We see the total destruction of beauty in this world because we allow these archons to ruin our world. We are children of nature and the guardians of the living library. We are also Gaia in many ways because of the spirit we are investing in this construct and in the former ones as well. Without us, everything that is living here would eventually die. So if we get depleted from our spirit energy, the rest of life forms here on Earth also depletes. Nature will deplete, animals will deplete, so we bring everything into death. And I hope that you realize this. So the more the humans get depleted from their spirit energy, the more this depletion also affects nature and animals. They become depleted as well. And so eventually everything dies rapidly. And this is also what we see. If you have flowers in your home, talk to them and breathe on them occasionally, and you will notice they will prosper. Your breath is spirit. Zoe also blew spirit through Yaldabaoth into Adam, so Adam could live and breathe by himself, the same as we do when applying first aid at an accident scene when the victim stops breathing. We breathe more spirit into the body, and the vacant spirit hopefully returns and can breathe by themselves again. So, in general, what keeps our body alive is the breathing 3-unit composite. Mimicking things in his usual way, Yaldabaoth then created artificial souls and artificial minds in our so-called image, who become these non-player characters, both NPCs and archons. Oh, oh, both NPCs and archons with a capital A, who incarnate here without spirit, can use the spirit that has been accumulated within the matrix system and stored by the authorities, better known as the head archons with capital A, and thus keep these beings alive in the planet. However, they lack spirit of their own and must feed on ours, or they physically die. There again, we have the narcissists and the psychopaths. But even 3-unit composites on the so-called spectrum abuse others to get loose instead of changing their behaviors and becoming in control of themselves again. So, whether Isis is trapped here or if she operates here intentionally to achieve certain goals is up for debate, but it is a no-brainer to realize, based on all the information we have, that she is having a rough time here. After all, living in this construct and taking bodies here, she is part of the matrix, just like us. This affects her just like it affects you and me. There is little difference, except she might remember more and have more knowledge in genetic engineering and other things we humans currently lack. Initially, she worked with Yaldabaoth on having us incarnate here in the third construct. Thus we could help her and Pistis to shine light into the matrix and flash out the archons with capital A and small a. But things became much harsher than was expected. We humans can, of course, speculate whether this could have been avoided, but things are what they are, and that is what we must deal with. We might be angry at many things, or we may not, but it changes nothing. That is something we can address later after we have exited. For instance, we can blame ISIS for doing this and that or neglecting to do certain things, but if so, we also blame ourselves as humans. So ISIS is limited in what she can do so long as the human soul group does not assist her. My contact in Orion said to the effect, "Where is Isis? I cannot find her. Is she really physically lost, or does she symbolize spirit in this sense, or both?" In other words, what was he asking? Where is spirit? That was what was being asked. Where is the human spirit? We as a human soul group are rarely or sparsely connected to it. We humans are literally the crown of creation. We are, so to say, royal. I.E. We are spirit. We are the gold that the archons with capital A are constantly digging for. We are here on a mission we have forgotten about. That is not our fault, but the fact remains we are of little help other than to the authorities, the archons, the 12 main head archons, and one of them is ruling this construct that we are in, to whom we are of great help. Yes, because what I said before, we have spirit, we have creative abilities, we have imagination. All these things are things that archons lack. So they need us to create a world for them in which they can thrive, and that we cannot thrive in that world. They don't care about that. They don't care about us at all. And it's about time that we wake up to this, that we are living with beings that do not take care, that do not care about us, that do not love us, that don't have any sympathy for us, that do not have any empathy for us because they don't know what all that is. We are their living batteries, their slaves, their workers, doing their bidding, terraforming this world in a way that suits them, not us. That doesn't make ISIS or my contact's job easier. Again, the way furniture is placed, we have a great dilemma to face as a mass consciousness, but few want to know and stand up to it and rearrange the furniture. If a great numbers of humans came together and said no to all these bullshit archons slash authorities with capital A, comma, Orion would be able to assist on a grander scale. However, there first must be a call from humankind that we need help and that we do our part. If that doesn't happen, some major intervention from Orion would create more confusion than it would help us. However, are there may be another solution which we will discuss in the end of this chapter. And so, with this said, I have come to the end of part 2 of this chapter titled The Kingdom of Death. So, we need to realize that we are living in a world with beings who do not have any connection with us and who only are using us as their living battery, as their workers. So all the things that we see set up in this construct, such as the financial system, the governmental body, everything that is being set up in this system is not there for us and never was mentioned to be there for us in the first place. This whole idea of the Declaration of Human Rights and Children's Rights is one farce. It's a declaration created by the archontic beings to make us believe that they care about us. But they don't, because if we look around, then we must come to the conclusion that this whole Declaration of Human Rights is in no way, shape, or form being um, used in such a way. What do I mean? We see a lot of people being homeless. We see that healthcare is becoming more and more expensive. There is no job for everyone. And in the Declaration of Human Rights, it is being stated that each person, each human being, has a right on a decent roof above their head, a decent health system, health care, and has a right to have a job and whatever. So if we look around us, then we must come to the conclusion that this whole Declaration of Human Rights is just a lie, is nothing more than a candy bait used to make us falsely believe that they care about us. They don't care about us. They never did. And it's about time that we start to acknowledge this, and that we start to see this, and that we start to say no to all this. And that we stand up from our knees and say no to all these archontic authorities whom are ruling the healthcare system, the financial system, the governmental bodies, all the CEOs of all these global corporations, and so on and so on, and whom are ruling this group of lobbyists, because these are also being part of the archontic structure, through the proxies and minions here on earth, known as the Elite, for many known as Cabal or Illuminati or whatever label they have been hung to them. So we need to wake up and stop participating in many things. And if this results in the fact that you have to lose everything from which you falsely believed that you had to stay stuck unto or hold dear, because everything is an illusion, then you need to give up all these things. It is humanity that keeps themselves in this horror by refusing to stop participating in doing the dirty job for all these archontic beings. So wake the heck up. And with this said, I have come to the end of this today's live book reading. I want to thank you for tuning in through Rumble, through Facebook, and through YouTube. Thank you for spending some of your time to listen along. And please share all these live book readings that I have done so far, especially the ones that I did from the Wes Penry books. Please go to the website links mentioned in the text box, especially the websites of Wes Penry. Go to there and seek for more information. You can buy one of his books. I would highly recommend you this one and The Story of Isis and the War on Bloodlines. It's a very good book to get yourselves a deeper understanding of what bloodline means and how it all works in this construct. All right, I wish you all a beautiful day filled with a lot of love and joy and wisdom and truth, and also revelations coming from Spirit in you. And let us listen to a nice piece of music from Ben Sound called Hope.